Washington, the Inside Scoop. All the news the government does not want you to hear. Now, here's your host on the Inside Scoop, Mark Levine.
Good evening, America. Welcome to the Inside Scoop. If you saw the Inside Scoop last night, you were in for a really stunning show. There's really no other way to put it. James Comey, the former Deputy Attorney General of the United States, his testimony was shown. Now, it's interesting. We showed it here on the Inside Scoop. We got it from a PoliticsTV.com, and we showed it. But C-SPAN doesn't have this. ABC doesn't have this. CBS doesn't have this. NBC did show the clip. It's not been shown very often, but what James Comey described was something that's right out of the Godfather movie. Basically, Ashcroft and Comey agreed that a certain program of the president's, which everyone has said was the warrantless wiretapping program, was illegal. Ashcroft had to have emergency gallbladder surgery, and then they go in to try to trick him. Who? Alberto Gonzales, the current Attorney General, and Chief of Staff Andy Card tried to get Ashcroft, while under the influence of drugs after his gallbladder surgery, to sign a document to approve the program. Ashcroft refuses with pretty much his last energy. They ignore Comey, who's the acting Attorney General, and then only after Ashcroft and Comey and their chiefs of staff and the director of the FBI, Mueller, agree in March 2004 into a collective resignation. Everyone at the top of the Justice Department doing a collective resignation. Then, only then, did George Bush agree to back off the program. It's a fascinating story, and one that I want to talk about with my guest today. He's Republican Mike Lane. He's Republican strategist, the president of Intelephant Strategies. And we're going to discuss this and lots of other issues tonight. Immigration, the war in Iraq, really whatever else you want to talk about. Let me start, though, with this dramatic testimony of James Comey. Isn't it time now, Mike, for Gonzales to resign?
Absolutely not, Mark. It was time for Gonzales to resign 2 months ago, as I told you, for being one of the more politically inept clowns that has ever served in an administration. But the damage has been done. There is still no evidence that there's been any criminal activity or illegal activity committed by the Attorney General. Even Comey himself in his testimony testified that there was nothing illegal that took place in the hospital room or associated with the hospital room. He said that in the clip you told me to watch. And so my question is, once the administration has already suffered the political damage of 8 months of 8 weeks of having Gonzales exposed as one of the more inept political operatives that has ever graced Washington administration, he serves at the pleasure of the president. If the president's pleased, why should he go anywhere?
Well, I think the question is, why is the president pleased? What was very interesting about Comey's testimony was he made it pretty clear that the president himself, he thought, made the phone call. He got a call from John Ashcroft's wife to say that someone had called. She had said, no visitors. And it was his belief, it was the President of the United States that ordered his Attorney General to come in there and to break the law. Now, let's be clear here. The top law enforcement officer of the United States, John Ashcroft, says it's illegal. Number 2 law enforcement officer, James Comey, says it's illegal. Number 3 law enforcement officer, Ted Olson, the guy who represented Bush in the Bush v. Gore decision, says, I'm not willing to go this far. This is illegal. The director of the FBI says it is illegal. I will agree with you. This isn't about Alberto Gonzales. This is about the President of the United States ordering his henchman, Alberto Gonzales, to break the law. So at the end of the day, it is Bush's fault. But the fact is, Alberto Gonzales could not tell the president no, even when everyone had agreed this program was illegal. And what are they trying to do? To trick a sick man into relenting and changing his mind.
Mark, you're making several leaps here, and the synapses just have not connected. You spin a very, very good story. I will grant you that if there's any area that the Congress should investigate, this is it. But you're jumping to conclusions that the evidence still is not there on, and it's problematic as to whether the evidence is going to be there. Number one, yes, Comey said, well, I sort of had the impression that it might have been the president who made that phone call, but I don't really know that for sure. Well, we're not going to hang somebody for somebody who sort of has a recollection that it might have been something. The second thing is, clearly Ashcroft was in control of his wits, as Comey says. He went in there expecting to see a sick man, and Ashcroft sat up with strength, with vigor, and with clarity and with vision, and explained exactly why he was not going to sign any document, and furthermore said, and besides that, I'm not the Attorney General. The acting Attorney General is standing right next to me. So there was no attempt to persuade somebody who was not capable or incapacitated to do anything, because clearly he was totally capacitated at the time, per Comey's testimony.
Nice try, Mike.
No, it's true.
But Gonzalez had no way of knowing whether Ashcroft was capacitated or not. He just had emergency gallbladder surgery. His wife had ordered no visitors. Gonzalez was well aware that Ashcroft and Comey both said this was illegal. He comes in with an executive order. He knows Comey's the acting Attorney General. He doesn't even talk to Comey. He ignores Comey. Doesn't even look at Comey's direction because he knows Comey is wide awake and sane and is going to tell him no. What he doesn't know, until Ashcroft surprised everyone and actually was well enough to respond, is that Ashcroft is wide awake and sane enough to tell him no. A lot of people, that's a very tough surgery. And Comey himself said that he told Andy Card, what I saw made me very angry because you were trying to take advantage of a sick man. Now, it's true that Ashcroft was wide awake enough, but that's only the country's dumb luck. If it hadn't been, maybe they could have done the Don Corleone moment and gotten a sick man to sign a document.
Well, we don't know that. Again, it's conjecture, and it's irresponsible conjecture, because you're saying what somebody would have done under a circumstance that doesn't exist. We do know that the Attorney General, confined to a hospital bed, was clear, was strong, was cogent, was articulate, and was thoughtful. And we know that he made a decision. He made that decision forcefully and explained himself. And then he further said, and not only that, according to the law, I'm not the AG anyway, you got to talk to him. So, you know, you can't make that leap that it's in. I'll grant you that we need an investigation here. I'll grant you that, you know, there's enough smoke here that it's raising questions in my mind as well as yours. I want those questions answered, but you can't make the leap that you're making, Mark, at this point, because we just don't have the information.
Mike, this isn't about Attorney General Ashcroft, former Attorney General Ashcroft. This is about current Attorney General Alberto Gonzales. It isn't about what Ashcroft did in that room. It's what Alberto Gonzales tried to do in that room. So I ask you, is it not true that Alberto Gonzales walked in that room with an executive order, knowing Comey was in charge, and tried to get a man who wasn't in charge, sick after gallbladder surgery, to overrule him on a question that Gonzales knew everyone agreed was illegal? Is that not the truth?
An investigation will ascertain whether or not that is the truth.
Are you saying Comey's lying?
We don't know what Comey's saying. He comes across as a fairly legitimate witness.
Yes,
he comes across as a guy who's a loyal soldier, even, because he wasn't willing to talk about certain things.
And talk about it for several years.
And specified. But it was also clear from that this was a staged colloquy between him and Senator Schumer, that they had rehearsed this, they knew where this was going. He had probably been deposed beforehand, and they knew where the whole thing was going. So I want to see a full investigation before I say that, yes, he's telling the absolute truth. I want to get everybody in front of that committee and have them testify and find out what was going on that night. I'm not willing to hang anybody before we try them, okay?
What do you think Gonzales was doing in that room that night, if not what Comey testified that he was doing?
I'm sure he'll answer that question in front of Congress. I'm looking forward to it.
I'm sure he won't recall. Alberto Gonzales has all kinds of memory lapses. I am sure he doesn't remember. He's never told it before. The president was asked about Comey's testimony. Let me show you what the president said about it. We got that right here from CNN. Let's play it.
There's been some very dramatic testimony before the Senate this week from one of your former top Justice Department officials who describes a scene that some senators called stunning about a time when the warrantless wiretap program was being reviewed. Sir, did you send your then Chief of Staff and White House counsel to the bedside of John Ashcroft while he was ill to get him to approve that program? And do you believe that kind of conduct from White House officials is appropriate?
Kelly, there's a lot of speculation about what happened and what didn't happen. I'm not going to talk about it. It's a very sensitive program. I will tell you that, one, that the program is necessary to protect the American people, and it's still necessary because there's still an enemy that wants to do us harm. And so there'll be all kinds of talk about it. As I say, I'm not going to move the issue forward by talking about something as highly sensitive, highly classified subject. I will tell you, however, that the program is necessary.
Was it on your order, sir?
As I said, this program is a necessary program that was constantly reviewed and constantly briefed to the Congress.
Was it on your order, sir? I'm not going to talk about it. It's very sensitive. Just because there's been a public testimony before a congressional investigative panel about it, it's still very sensitive. I can't tell you whether or not I ordered my Flacky, I mean, that's who he was. Let's face it. This is the White House counsel. I'm not going to tell you why I ordered him to try to trick the Attorney General into breaking the law or not. I'm just not going to talk about it. It's none of your business whether I, the President of the United States, was trying to break the law. Shut up, America. Isn't that what Bush said?
I don't think so, Mark, but a nice dramatic performance, by the way. No, that's not what he was saying. What he was saying was that the program is very necessary to the safety and security of the American people. It is going forward. If indeed, as speculated, it's the wiretapping program, accommodation has been reached with Congress. You know, we have a program now that is...
the courts declared it unconstitutional.
The accommodation has been reached with Congress. We now have what everybody agrees is a fully constitutional program.
Yeah, the president backed down.
It's moving forward. You cannot hang somebody for one person's testimony that, oh, you know what, I have this sense, you know, Senator Schumer, it might, you know, I don't really know, it might be the president. I don't really know that. You can't hang. We need an investigation.
Well,
I'm meeting you not halfway.
The reporter
I'm
asked
meeting you all the way. No. Congress will investigate, not...
Should the president answer the question of whether or not he ordered a man to try to trick the Attorney General into breaking the law on spying millions of Americans, or is it none of our business?
Well, I'm of the opinion that, you know, most of the questions that reporters ask shouldn't be answered, so...
So it's none of our business?
No, it's
whether
not.
Whether or not the president tried to break the law?
No.
Because this, to me, is far worse than Watergate.
No,
let's be clear.
There is a proper forum, and...
What is that forum?
And Congress. That is the forum.
Okay. Congress should bring in who? Alberto Gonzales to answer this question?
I believe the Attorney General should be able to answer these questions, yes.
Okay. And when Alberto Gonzales says he doesn't recall that day, or he's not going to talk about it, or refuses to answer the question, then you'll call for his resignation.
I called for his resignation 8 weeks ago.
I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear that. But to me, actually, it goes beyond Gonzales. The fact that Bush could have easily said, no, I didn't order him to do that. Mm-hmm. That's all he didn't have to go into the details of the program. One of the things Comey did, which I thought was very respectable and honorable of him, is he said, I'm not going to go into the details of the program. I'm just going to say what happened in the hospital
Because, of course,
that night.
that had been worked out in advance with Senator Schumer for their colloquy.
Right.
And, you know, I mean...
No, I understand that. Absolutely. And that was his thing. I will testify about what happened. I won't talk about the legality problems in the program. That's fine. Right. Bush could have said the same thing. There's already been a public hearing. Now, either Comey's telling the truth or he's lying. Bush will not say. Because if Bush says I didn't order him, there'd be a direct conflict.
There is a third possibility, and it's very, very likely, whether it has significant bearing on Comey's testimony or not, we'll find out after the investigation. But it's very, very possible that Comey doesn't have all the information and doesn't have all the facts, and that when you put the entire mosaic together, the picture could look substantially different from what Comey's testimony makes it look like. Now, I'm agreeing with you. Comey has painted a fairly dismal picture. And we need to assemble that mosaic, and we need to find out what the facts are, no matter what they are. But we're not going to hang anybody based on an incomplete picture of somebody who was not 100% in the loop.
Well, I'm glad to hear you support continued investigation.
Absolutely, on this one.
3 weeks ago, when I said, you know, it's the Alberto Gonzales, do we need further investigation? You said no, this whole thing's over, talking about the prosecutors.
And that is over.
I think what we've seen is this is just the tip of the iceberg in this White House. A White House that has no respect for the law or the Constitution of the United States, and this just shows it. I'll give you a chance to respond in 1 second, but first we have to go to a break. Folks, if you want to join in the discussion, it's easy to do. Give us a call. The toll-free number is 888-488-MARK, 888-488-6275. Agree with Mike, agree with me, disagree with both of us, but let us hear from you. We'll be right back.
This is Mommy's bed. Me and Jenny were jumping on it. Mommy's gun fell on the floor. I was a cowboy. Bang, 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 bang. I said, Jenny, wake up, wake up. It's just pretend. But she wouldn't wake up.
If you give me a fish.
If you give someone a fish,
you feed them for a day.
Teach someone to fish.
You feed them for a lifetime.
give me a fish, and you'll feed me for a day. Teach me to fish, and you'll feed me for a lifetime.
Through Volunteers of America, you can help change lives in your community.
Oh, hey, mister, studied algebra in school and got a better job than I could. You take the last couple.
Oh, no, mister. Stuck in an entry-level job because you only learned basic math. I don't have a boss riding my butt like you do, so you take it so you can get back to your desk.
You know, I probably should, but maybe Miss AP Calculus with the $200 haircut in the big office upstairs would like a cup.
Oh, no, mister. What was your name again? Never mind, it doesn't matter. I'm too busy doing important things to care. I just came down for some sweet and start.
You know, if my limited math abilities weren't keeping me from getting a better job, I'd quit this afternoon.
I don't blame you. But thank goodness you're stuck here because we really need someone to make the coffee.
From Washington, back to the Inside Scoop with Mark Levine.
Welcome back to the Inside Scoop. I'm debating with Mike Lane over the dramatic testimony of James Comey, the former Deputy Attorney General of the United States. This actually was not on C-SPAN, not on ABC or CBS. It was on NBC, and this I have courtesy of someone named Frank Jam, whoever that is, on YouTube. Let me play some dramatic testimony. I don't know if we're having sound problems here. Let's see if that's better.
By the bed.
There we go.
Greeted the Attorney General very briefly, and then Mr. Gonzalez began to discuss why they were there, to seek his approval for a matter, and explain what the matter was, which I will not do. And Attorney General Ashcroft then stunned me. He lifted his head off the pillow and in very strong terms expressed his view of the matter, rich in both substance and fact, which stunned me, drawn from the hour-long meeting we'd had a week earlier, and in very strong terms expressed himself, and then laid his head back down on the pillow, seemed spent, and said to them, "But that doesn't matter because I'm not the Attorney General."
But he expressed his reluctance, or he would not sign the statement that they give the authorization that they had asked. Is that right?
Yes. And as he laid back down, he said, "But that doesn't matter because I'm not the Attorney General. There is the Attorney General," and he pointed to me when I was just to his left. The two men did not acknowledge me. They turned and walked from the room. And within just a few moments after that, Director Mueller arrived. I told him quickly what had happened. He had a brief, memorable, brief exchange with the Attorney General, and then we went outside in the hallway.
Dramatic stuff. Tell me this. What possible good, legal, decent motivation could Alberto Gonzalez have had in that room? Give him the absolute best way to explain this. What could he possibly say? Because I can't think of anything.
Well, number one, he was obviously unaware of the fact that the Attorney General had reached a legal conclusion that he was not going to sign it. Otherwise, he wouldn't be going there asking him to do it. Number two, it seems to me fairly clear that he was not aware of the medical circumstances of the Attorney General, probably didn't know that Mrs. Ashcroft had banned any visitors from the room for medical reasons, didn't know that the Attorney General was allegedly incapacitated under the influence of drugs, and clearly he wasn't as a result of the performance that Comey just testified to. So on the best case scenario, Mark, this was a routine visit to the Attorney General asking him, okay, we're here, here's the program as outlined, you know about it, you've been briefed on it, can you sign this? And when the Attorney General said, no, I can't sign it in rather clear terms, what did they do? They did what any clear, rational person would do. They left.
And what did they do after they left? They went around the back of the Attorney General. They went around the back of number 2, Comey. They went around the back of number 3, Olson. They went around the back of the FBI Director, Mueller. And someone said, sign anyway. Now, your best case, and I must admit, you're a great strategist. I'm sure you give people all kinds of great excuses all the time, Mike. What you're saying, in effect, is Gonzales was too stupid and too incompetent to know that Attorney General Ashcroft wasn't even in charge at the time, that he had gallbladder surgery, that visitors were banned, that, in fact, he was so stupid that he didn't realize when Attorney General Ashcroft pointed to Comey and said he's in charge, that he should go to Comey and talk about it. So I guess the very best scenario for Gonzales is he's not a criminal, he's just a blithering idiot.
Well, I've already stipulated to that.
All right, well, that's good. I'll take that. I'll take that. I actually think this goes beyond Gonzales. I really think it goes to the President of the United States. And one of the things that really concerns me is that there's a lot more to this story than we know. I believe, and I think there's a lot of evidence to show, that right now, the President of the United States and his minions, I don't think he's doing it personally, are spying on virtually all of us, doing, frankly, what they used to do in East Germany, in Soviet-style East Germany, keeping files on all of us, checking what political meetings we go to, checking who we talk with. I saw a very persuasive piece by someone called Neocon. It's amazing. We don't get a lot of this in the mainstream media. A lot of times we have to use YouTube and other things to find out what's really going on in this country. It's sad, but he points out something that I had noticed as well. They put together a better clip than I've done. But points out that every time Gonzales or anyone else is asked about warrantless wiretapping, they're always clear to say, not in this program. We are not spying on all Americans in this particular program. And when asked the broad question, well, are we spying on all Americans? He refuses to answer. Let me play this clip from Neocon. I want to know what you think about it.
Go ahead.
Eavesdropping is called a driftnet, an electronic driftnet. But former NSA Director General Michael Hayden said no. That's not what was going on in the president's eavesdropping program.
This isn't a driftnet out there where we're soaking up everyone's communications. We are going after very specific communications that...
Now, you have General Hayden, the former head of the NSA, and the Attorney General saying, this is not a driftnet. We're not doing data mining in this program.
What they've said repeatedly is that we're not doing the driftnet in this program. But it might be program number 2 or program number 3.
This program being what, the President's program?
Because they were talking about the President's program, and then the other things we're worried about tend to be happening in these other programs they haven't admitted to.
Is there any stop you from wiretapping without a warrant somebody inside the United States that you suspect of having al-Qaeda connections?
Well, clearly, Senator, that is not what's going on here, first of all.
Not a true denial.
Yep.
Have you looked at it closely?
I looked at the Attorney General's testimony very carefully. And
not a true denial.
Yep.
Have you looked at it closely?
I looked at the Attorney General's testimony very carefully. And every time he gave the big denials, they were attached to the words, this program.
Al-Qaeda to Al-Qaeda within the country, you're saying we do not get involved in those calls. Now,
not under the program in which I'm testifying, that's right.
To me, you're saying Al-Qaeda to Al-Qaeda within the country is beyond the bounds?
Sir, it is beyond the bound of the program which I'm testifying about today.
Has the President ever invoked this authority with respect to any activity other than NSA surveillance?
Again, so I'm not sure how to answer that question. And the President has exercised his authority to authorize this very targeted surveillance of international communications of the enemy. So, I'm sorry, your question is...
Activity other than the program we're discussing, the NSA surveillance
Senator, I am not comfortable...
Activity other than the program we're discussing, the NSA surveillance
Senator, I am not comfortable going down the road of saying yes or no as to what the President has or has not authorized.
He's a former judge. He's a smart lawyer. The Attorney General was speaking very carefully. But I think there could be lots of room, after you read his testimony, for other programs to be doing real...
This actually apparently was from Frontline on PBS. Mm-hmm. This is something that I have caught myself. So Frontline gets credit, but I also have noticed every time Attorney General is asked, Is everybody being spied on? Do we have a Soviet-style secret police that are watching all Americans? Well, I'm not comfortable answering that question. I'll tell you it's not in Program A. But whether it's not in Program B or C or D, I don't really understand your question. Congress then rephrases it. He refuses to answer. If the administration is spying on all of us, should Attorney General Gonzalez, should the President of the United States come clean and let us all know about it, or is it okay to keep this all secret?
Well, again, Mark, you're making a leap here that I don't think exists. What Senator Feinstein and the rest of the senators conducting this investigation were asking was not, is the government spying on all of us? They were talking about domestic al-Qaeda to al-Qaeda. And I certainly hope that we're listening in on even suspected, much less confirmed, domestic phone calls, al-Qaeda to al-Qaeda. There's no excuse. That would be a violation of the president's oath of office to keep us safe and secure if he wasn't listening in on those phone conversations. And that's exactly what Senator Feinstein asked. And if it's not in program number B or letter B or whatever he was talking about, I do assume that there's classified programs D, E, F, G, and H, and I would hope that one of those programs does have, grant them the authority to listen to domestic al-Qaeda to al-Qaeda conversations.
How about this for an answer from Alberto Gonzalez? Everything that is being done under the Constitution of the United States. The Fourth Amendment requires a warrant to do a search, and we have gotten all the warrants necessary to do the searches we're required to do. In other words, the FISA court, which is a secret court under the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, is authorized specifically to monitor domestic al-Qaeda phone calls. If they've gone to the FISA court, I don't have any problem with it because I think it should be monitored with probable cause and all the constitutional protections that we have. He's not answering that way. And as you know, the FISA court also threatened to resign over the president's secretive programs. A court has found some of them unconstitutional. Let me suggest to you that if we're going to abolish the Constitution, we should at least amend it first. And that if you don't like the way it's written, change it. But right now, you need a court order to do these things. Why can't we get a court order?
Well, we don't know that there isn't a court order. As you pointed out, the FISA court is a secret court.
Right.
And we don't know. We know they approve. I think the number is more than 2,000 wiretaps a year or something like that.
They approve way more than 90% of what's brought to them.
So we don't know that the FISA court is not approving these things.
All Alberto Gonzalez has to
say,
all he has to say is, we are following the law. We are not doing warrantless wiretapping of anybody.
I can understand where he or anybody would be very, very wary of admitting to or discussing in any way a classified program on the record that has not been revealed yet. I would not do that if I were him, and I would hope you wouldn't do that either, Mark.
I would want to know it's done within the law. That's my concern. Well, if it's done within the law, I have no problem with it. We can change the laws. But I want to make sure the laws are being followed, and I'm concerned we have a lawless president here.
But if it's done, if it's Program E and Program E is classified and he's being asked about Program E or any of the programs that might not be Program B under the law, he should properly in open forum not answer that question.
No, he should properly say, we need to go to a closed forum to discuss this, and then do so in a closed forum. Folks, if you want to join the conversation, the toll-free number is 888-488-MARK. We'll be right back after this.
Some people in Fairfax County don't know what public access means.
Some think it's just another channel on the dial.
But it's much more than that.
It's the voice of the people.
People like you.
Your neighbors,
your friends,
or your family.
People who want to share ideas,
opinions,
cultures,
lifestyles,
art,
sports, music,
events,
entertainment,
history,
science,
beliefs.
People who want to learn about television,
producing,
directing,
cameras, audio,
lighting,
editing, or radio, talk, music.
Whatever you think people should hear.
Public access is the place where everyone has a voice.
And it's the place where that voice gets heard.
A place where you can create your own form of personal expression.
So what do you want to say?
Whatever it is,
you can say it here.
Because we're public access.
For the people,
by the people.
It is about balancing our choices between the gray of the concrete jungle and the stunning beauty of the real one, between a stoic facade of granite and the fury of the canyon. It's why there's EarthShare, the simple way to find balance. EarthShare is the workplace giving program bringing the leading environmental groups under one umbrella. Support EarthShare, support them all. EarthShare. Please ask your employer about workplace giving. To learn more, visit our website.
Thousands of kids in this country have everything it takes to go to college, except the money. The United Negro College Fund. A mind is a terrible thing to waste.
From Washington, back to the Inside Scoop with Mark Levine.
Welcome back to the Inside Scoop. I've been reading some of the comments on the blog. If you want to join in the conversation, you can do so either by calling in 888-488-MARK or by commenting on the blog at radioinsidescoop.com. It's just been reported, Mike tells me, that under the immigration bill, the Senate had come to an implicit understanding with the president, the Republicans, Democrats, and the president on a bill they could all agree to, but it has been pulled. It's not going to go to the floor this week. I suspect, Mike, instead they're going to focus on a no-confidence vote on Alberto Gonzales, which I think is something that we can all bipartisanly agree that none of us have any confidence in the current Attorney General.
How creative, something that's never happened before in the history of the Senate, coming up with a very creative way. As politically inept as the Attorney General might be, I will give Senator Schumer his due. He is very politically adept.
He is. I will give him his due as well. It's interesting. There have been censure motions. In fact, the one dates all the way back to Andrew Jackson. And I also know that basically Congress cannot remove the Attorney General without the President's permission unless they try impeachment. And let me suggest to you that impeachment may be the proper way to get rid of Alberto Gonzales. It seems to me that he has committed quite a crime if he was the one, and we don't know who it was yet, who signed on to the document to approve this program after everyone in the Justice Department and the FBI said this is illegal.
Mark, as I understand it, and you know, I'm helping you out here. As I understand it, the law requires that the Attorney General or his designee sign off on this.
Right, that's correct.
Well, there's nobody on the White House staff that I'm aware of that was the Attorney General's designee.
That's right.
Now, it might have been that happened and we didn't know about it. It might have been that some deal was cut. Well, I'm not going to do it, but I will authorize you to do it, you know, blah, blah, blah. That's what an investigation is going to find out, and that's what we'll know. But until we have these facts, it's premature to hang anybody. Well, like you, though, I think there's enough smoke here. I want to know the facts.
Okay,
I think this is something that needs to be investigated.
And you think Attorney General Gonzales should answer the question of who authorized that memo after everyone said it was illegal? We're not going to do this.
You know, there is the concept of executive privilege. There may be a way of getting this information without getting the Attorney General to testify, because remember, you're not asking the Attorney General to testify, you're asking the former White House counsel to testify who has executive privilege, who just happens now to be the Attorney General, but you're asking him in his capacity as former. But we need to get the information, and I'm willing to go along with, I would recommend to the President that he waive executive privilege in this case and allow the Attorney General to state for the record what he was doing that night.
As you know, Mike, in the very famous United States Supreme Court of United States v. Nixon, they said that criminal wrongdoing in the White House trumps executive privilege when they required Richard Nixon to turn over those tapes. Let me suggest to you that when everyone in the Justice Department says, without doubt, this is illegal. Even a guy like Ashcroft, who was willing to do things like extraordinary rendition and hide prisoners from the Red Cross and put people in Guantanamo Bay without habeas corpus, all things that I think are very clearly illegal. He was willing to go that far, but even he wasn't willing to go as far, apparently, as Gonzales asked him to do. And someone signed off on this. I would suggest that is the kind of high crime and misdemeanor that we have an absolute right to investigate.
Well, you're leaping again without the evidence. I want to see that. I want to know who was it that signed off on it. I want to know by what authority they thought they had the authority to sign off on it. I think this is a proper topic for Congress to investigate.
And the President should answer questions about it from the press.
You know, the press is just so arrogant and out of control.
How dare they ask the President these questions?
You know, I think
shouldn't he answer them? He should answer these questions.
No.
He should let us know what was going on.
No, the proper forum for this is not the press. The proper forum for this is a congressional investigation.
True, but the President needs to answer these questions, because I would suggest to you it was the President.
Well, we'll find out.
Alberto Gonzales by that bedside, and that's what Comey thinks.
Mark, you're a former lawyer. You know, you did trial attorney. You know how to work a courtroom. You know how to do an investigation. You start at the bottom and you work your way up until you find the information you're looking for. Let's start at the bottom and see where it goes.
Speaking of the bottom, one of the people who apparently was very in charge of getting rid of our U.S. prosecutors was Monica Gooding. She has now been given immunity by the Judiciary Committee. She will be required to testify probably next week, maybe the week after, around the same time as this no confidence vote of Alberto Gonzales. Monica Gooding is a fascinating character. She graduated from the 134th best law school in the country out of 134. That would be Pat Robertson's Regent University, which apparently cares much more about the Bible than the actual law. And apparently this very low down, 20-something person who's, the assistant to the deputy to the staff, she made the decisions over whether or not prosecutors should keep their jobs. And she, apparently, because no one else has owned up to it, was in charge of firing a whole slew of prosecutors. Some she asked about their political affiliation. She said she was going to plead the fifth. So it's going to be very interesting to find out how much power this very low-level staffer had.
All right, first of all, where she went to school is irrelevant because she wasn't practicing law. She was an administrator, okay? Secondly...
But she was firing the nation's best prosecutors.
Well, hardly the best. What we will find out is what she took into consideration when she did this, whether she was ordered to do it or whether she came to these conclusions on her own. I think these are all legitimate questions that former Deputy Attorney General or Assistant Attorney General or whatever Ms. Goodling was.
She was none of that. She was none of that. She was an assistant to the Chief of Staff of the Attorney General.
We'll find out what she did, when she did it, why she did it, how she did it, and I think these are appropriate questions for her to be asked.
Should deciding who are our nation's prosecutors be in the care of someone like Monica Gooding? Or should that's something that the Attorney General or the Deputy Attorney General or at least the Chief of Staff to the Attorney General should be deciding?
I think the record has indicated that nobody took action to replace any of these United States attorneys without the notification of the Attorney General. Ms. Goodling was not off acting on her own, half-cocked. She was keeping her superiors informed.
Well, see, Mike, the problem is that whatever argument you make, it's contradicted by something Alberto Gonzales says.
No.
He says he was out of the loop. He says he played no role. He said he wasn't involved. And then he says, yes, he took responsibility for everything, but he doesn't know what happened, and he doesn't know who made the decisions. But yes, it's all fine with him.
He has admitted on the record that he was briefed and he knew in advance what was going down.
First he said he wasn't, and then he said he was, just to be clear.
No, he said he wasn't involved in the decision process, but he never said that he didn't know about it, and he has admitted on the record that he knew about it.
Yes, but he can't say when, and he doesn't remember the meeting, and he doesn't remember what happened.
So Monica Goodling was not off, chopping heads, by herself, like, oh, look at me, I'm on this little power trip. That's just not the way it went down.
I actually think it is the way that went down. Because Gonzales, if he was doing it, why wouldn't he remember it?
Well, if Goodling was out there just chopping heads off, then the Justice Department is better off without her.
That's true. But the question is not what Monica Goodling, I don't think it's about her. The question is, what kind of Justice Department do we have when they allow someone like that to make these big decisions?
Well, I don't think it went down that way. We'll apparently find out next week.
Gonzales says he didn't. Deputy Attorney General McNulty says he didn't make it. Kyle Sampson, the Chief of Staff to Gonzales, says he didn't make it. He heard from Goodling. Who else could have made the decisions? There's no one left.
If you're looking for the person who had ultimate sign-off authority on this,
well, it was Attorney General Gonzales. But who made the decisions?
He didn't sign. No, I don't want to disparage a good person's name or anything like that. But I would say you're looking at McNulty as the guy who was ultimately holding the bag on this. Now we'll find out. We'll find out. But McNulty may be totally innocent of having fingerprints anywhere on this. But it looks to me the way the whole thing is shaken out, all roads lead to McNulty.
All right. That's an interesting theory. We will certainly see. One of the things that's interesting now that the immigration bill is passed is that it seems to have ignited a fire in the Republican nomination race. John McCain, I will grant him, has always been funnier than the other candidates running. And what was the quote he made about Mitt Romney? I don't know if you have it up here. Something about using his gun to shoot varmints to get Guatemalans off his lawn?
Yeah, it was, I believe the exact quote, it's, I don't know if I have it up here. Something about using his gun to shoot varmints to get Guatemalans off his lawn. Yeah, it was, I believe the exact quote, it's, I don't know if I have it up here. Something about using his gun to shoot varmints to get Guatemalans off his lawn. slow in coming.
We'll find it. We'll find it.
Yeah. First of all, let's tell the audience that the news after we went on the air, but while we've been here, is that the Senate leader, Senator Reid, has decided to pull the immigration bill off the calendar. The calendar was that they were going to vote on cloture tonight. Before anybody had read the bill, before the word was even available, they were going to vote on cloture tonight, and they were going to have a final vote on it on Thursday. Interesting to me, they had Democratic strategist Bob Beckel, best known for managing Walter Mondale's campaign, on television tonight, and he said, well, of course we're going to vote on this thing before anybody has a chance to read it. It'll never pass if they do. Thank you, Bob Beckel.
That's a great reason to pull a bill.
Well,
let me suggest to you that one thing that you and I have agreed on.
They didn't have the votes. That's why they pulled it.
But you and I have agreed on for a very long time. One thing is process. And one thing you and I both agree on is no member of Congress should be voting on bills they haven't read. In any Congress, Republican or Democratic, I'm glad they pulled the bill. I think it was the right thing to do. I think this is a major piece of legislation, and it's something that we really need to discuss, get the country behind. Frankly, all the details weren't even clear when it was reported in the press last Friday that they had made an agreement. A few of the ideas, there would be I think it was 8 years to get citizenship and a $5,000 fine. A few of the details trickled out, but none of us had all the details.
Right.
I think Reid is absolutely right to pull the bill, to discuss it, and to get a bill that America can be behind. I'm sure you agree.
I do. And John McCain's exact quote about Mitt Romney was, quote, maybe he can get out his small varmint gun and drive those Guatemalans off his yard, unquote.
Yeah. Well, of course, that is because Mitt Romney said that he used to hunt for small varmints.
Right.
Let's face it.
And also because Mitt Romney was the first of the major first-tier presidential contenders to come out and say that he was opposed to the immigration bill.
But let's face it, Mitt Romney is all over the map. Mitt Romney changes his positions faster than John Kerry's windsurfing. I mean, here's a guy who's against gay rights, before he's against gay rights, and pro-choice, and then anti-choice, and he wants to double Guantanamo Bay. Mitt Romney's a joke, isn't he?
No. He has changed a lot of his positions. There's no doubt that he's changed his positions. You're not allowed to admit this when you're a candidate, so he'll never admit it. But let's face it, at one time he was campaigning for either senator or governor of Massachusetts, and you position yourself a certain way when you're doing that. And now he's campaigning for the Republican nomination for president of the United States, and you position yourself in a totally different piece of the sphere when you're doing that. And
well, here's a crazy idea. He could either do one of two things. He could either say, I'm going to stay firm in my position, and if the Massachusetts voters don't like me for it, I'll lose. That's one way to do it. That would be called principle.
As a political strategist, I would recommend against that.
The other option is to tell the truth, to say, you know what? I believe in representative democracy. I don't really care that much about abortion one way or the other. The Massachusetts voters, they're pro-choice. I'll represent them. But Republican voters, they're more pro-life. I'll represent them. That would be honest. It would be representative democracy. He could never say that.
As a political strategist, I would recommend against that too.
But why can't we have honesty in politics? I mean, it's too. This is Don Quixote, right? This is quixotic idealism.
That's a good question. And in Mitt Romney's defense, we may have him up there as the example, but every single one of them on both sides have different positions now than they did the first time they ran for office or the last time they ran for office.
I bet you that's true of the Republicans. I don't think you can say that about the Democrats.
Oh, let's look at Hillary. She voted.
Let's look at Barack Obama. Has he changed his position any?
Barack Obama doesn't.
He's pretty consistent.
He doesn't have any positions. He had more abstentions in the Illinois legislature on controversial issues than anybody else in the legislature. Just abstained because he didn't know where he was. Or nope, I take that back. He knew he was running for higher office and didn't want to lock himself into it. You know what? I don't have that record in front of me.
We can look it up.
Invite me back in a month. I'll do it.
All
okay.
Right, we'll do that. The toll-free number is 888-488-MARK. You're welcome to join in the discussion. It's easy to do. Pick up the phone and say, Mark, you're full of it. Mike, you're full of it. Whatever you want to say, we want to hear from you. You can also comment on the blog at radioinsidescoop.com. We'll be right back with more of the Inside Scoop right after this.
Some people in Fairfax County don't know what public access means.
Some think it's just another channel on the dial.
But it's much more than that.
It's the voice of the people.
People like you.
Your neighbors,
your friends,
or your family.
People who want to share ideas,
opinions,
cultures,
lifestyles,
art,
sports, music,
events,
entertainment,
history,
science,
beliefs.
people who want to learn about television,
producing,
Directing.
cameras, audio,
lighting,
Editing. Or radio. Talk. Music.
Whatever you think people should hear.
Public access is the place where everyone has a voice.
And it's the place where that voice gets heard.
A place where you can create your own form of personal expression.
So what do you want to say?
whatever it is.
You can say it here.
Because we're public access.
For the people.
By the people.
It is about balancing our choices between the gray of the concrete jungle and the stunning beauty of the real one, between a stoic facade of granite and the fury of the canyon. It's why there's EarthShare, the simple way to find balance. EarthShare is the workplace giving program bringing the leading environmental groups under one umbrella. Support EarthShare, support them all. EarthShare. Please ask your employer about workplace giving. To learn more, visit our website.
Thousands of kids in this country have everything it takes to go to college, except the money. The United Negro College Fund. A mind is a terrible thing to waste.
From Washington, back to the Inside Scoop with Mark Levine.
Welcome back to the Inside Scoop. I'm debating the issues of the day with Republican strategist Mike Lane, the president of Intelephant Strategies, who's basically just told me that he wouldn't counsel a politician to tell the truth, which just shows you're a great strategist.
You got to get them elected somehow. You can't accomplish your agenda and improve the country or the jurisdiction for the people that you want to represent unless you get elected. And anybody who is brutally 100% honest in any campaign and tells the voters exactly what they're thinking is unlikely to succeed.
I'm afraid that you're right, and I don't like my country that way. And I would like to see a politician who simply says, this is what I believe. If you like it, vote for me. If you don't like it, don't vote for me. And if I do change my view, I will tell you that I changed my view, and I'll tell you what made me change my view.
Let me put it a little bit more palatably, perhaps. And
yes,
that is
please.
that a campaign is really about connecting with voters, and you should be talking about those issues with which you have something in common with the voters, not those things with which you have something in opposition with the voters.
But Mike, I see a difference between emphasis and, let's say, deception. Okay, it's one thing to understand that when you're talking with a group of union workers, you're going to talk about unions. You're not going to talk as much about the environment. Through the Sierra Club, you'll talk more about the environment and less about abortion and so forth. That's okay. That's emphasis. That's telling people what they want to hear. But it's quite another thing, I think, to basically change your positions because you think you'll get elected in a better jurisdiction. I mean, Mitt Romney, I understand Massachusetts is more liberal than the rest of the United States, but which do you think were his true beliefs? I mean, when he ran as governor of Massachusetts, or when he runs as president of the United States, or maybe he doesn't have any.
No, I think his true beliefs. I think his true beliefs are now. I mean,
so he was lying to the voters of Massachusetts, not lying to national voters now.
He was positioning himself more cynically for the voters of Massachusetts than he is now. Yes.
Do you think that this kind of thing will harm his nomination?
Come on, let's talk about cynicism. Does anybody really believe that Hillary Clinton was a lifelong Yankee fan? You know,
no.
Positioning yourself.
I don't know. I mean, I take it back. I have no idea what Hillary Clinton's sports positions are. People may not even know I'm a Red Sox fan.
She doesn't even know where baseball.
I don't talk about baseball very much, but I am a Red Sox fan and have been since college.
First base to Mrs. Clinton was making out in college.
Don't go there. You and your Republican obsession with sex, I don't understand. Let me go back, because I do have a comment on the blog. This is from Mike. He writes, if any senator asks anybody, is there a domestic spying program? And then the person says, not as part of this program. Is that person obstructing justice by lying to Congress or perjury by not answering the question? Mike, that's a great question. The answer is that it is not perjury to refuse or to duck a question. That's why it happens so often. That's why Bill Clinton, in fact, I believe, never committed perjury. He said it all depends on what the definition of is. He ducked the question. We have Alberto Gonzalez ducking the question. As a lawyer, I can tell you, people duck questions all the time. And a good trial lawyer will keep insisting that someone answer the question.
Right.
So what I think Senator Feinstein and the others should have done is said, Mr. Gonzalez, you have not answered my question. I'm going to ask you again the exact same question. And if you refuse to answer it, we're going to have a vote on whether or not to hold you in contempt. In other words, raise the stakes, make it clear that he's refusing to answer the question, and then, Mike, the only thing Congress can really do is say, you are refusing to answer the question. We have a constitutional right to have this question answered. Are you refusing to answer it in closed session? If he says, yes, I'm refusing to answer it in closed session, then you hold a contempt. And if you have to, you cart him off into, there's a little jail cell. Do you know this in Congress, in the Capitol Hill? There's a little jail cell where you can hold someone in contempt of Congress. I don't think it's been used very often, but the Sergeant at Arms does have a right, if Congress holds someone in contempt, if they have to put him there. And that's really the only thing that they can forcibly do.
I'm going to search the internet and find a picture of that jail cell.
I don't know if
I'm fascinated now.
There is a place they can hold
Mark,
them. I don't know if it has bars. I've never been there.
Your first suggestion was the right one. You pursue this in closed session rather than open session before you hold anybody in contempt. But I'm not willing to stipulate for the record now that Senator Feinstein didn't know exactly what she was asking and didn't know exactly what the answer to the question was and doesn't have, as a member of perhaps the Intelligence Committee, I don't know all her committee assignments, but I'm not willing to say that she doesn't know what the answer to that question is. It may have just a little colloquy that she wanted to get on the record like that. And really knew exactly what the Attorney General was going to answer to that question and was willing to let it lie after she got the answer she knew she was going to get.
I don't think it's quite that clear given how many colleges
I'm not saying that's the answer. We don't know, right.
But here's the thing. I'm concerned that they're not even telling the intelligence committees what's going on. We know that this particular program, this warrantless wiretapping program, they did tell just the heads of the committees, and that Senator Jay Rockefeller was not even allowed to tell his staff, and had to do a handwritten note because he couldn't use the computers at the Capitol to do his objections, did a handwritten note, made a copy himself to prove he made the handwritten note. Let me suggest to you that that's not effective oversight. That I doubt Senator Rockefeller is a lawyer. I don't know. I don't think he is. The point is that you need your staff to find out if these things are legal. The White House has a whole host of lawyers on staff to say to Congress, in effect, we'll tell 2 people and you can't tell anyone. That's not effective oversight, and I would suggest to you that even in closed session, we don't have effective oversight.
I've never been in the closed session. You have been a staff on Capitol Hill. Perhaps you've been in the closed session, perhaps you haven't. I don't know. I can't speak to what happens in a classified hearing because I haven't been there. Well,
I'll just answer that question briefly. I was actually offered a top secret clearance, but at that time I knew I was going to leave and I knew I was going to do this kind of thing, and I decided not to get it purposely so that when I report something that I find out, no one takes me off to Guantanamo Bay. So that was a little self-protection there.
You know, you'd like it this time of year.
It's probably pretty hot for me, and I don't like orange. Now, one thing I do want to talk about, though, is immigration, because this is a very interesting issue in that it divides Democrats and Republicans in all kinds of unpredictable ways. Democrats are torn between unions and Latinos. Republicans are torn between nativists and big business. How do you think this will work out at the end?
I think and I haven't read the articles. We haven't had the advantage of reading the articles, but if you want me to speculate now, just having seen the headline that the bill has been pulled until, quote, June, unquote, if they don't have the votes on a rush, they're not going to have the votes after this thing lays open to exposure for a month. So I think we have seen the high watermark on immigration reform, and I don't think we're going to get it.
That's really interesting because this is one of the few things that the majority of Democrats and the president agree on.
Right.
It's actually the Republicans who, although they're a minority in both House and Senate, they're a very strong minority. I mean, the margins are very small, particularly in the Senate. It's really the Republicans that are preventing this from happening.
Well, you have two. You have the Senate, where Lindsey Graham, senator from South Carolina, Republican, came out of the negotiating session when they announced the deal and said he could count 75 votes in favor of this. I think he was either being optimistic or he was trying to create the illusion of a bow wave. In fact, whereas I would have guessed that they had the 60 votes they might have needed to invoke cloture, now I think that's very iffy because I don't think they would have pulled it unless they were worried about that. Speaker Pelosi has said unless she has 70 votes delivered by the president in the House, she's not even going to bring it to the floor. I don't see a snowball's chance in hell they're going to bring it to that.
On her part, isn't it?
I think so, yeah.
I mean, I agree.
Because the Republicans are going to use it against, right.
It's a very controversial in both parties, and it's a real hot-button issue that neither one wants to talk about.
Most of the Democrats, the freshman Democrats who beat incumbent Republicans this time, giving the majority to Pelosi, were people who campaigned against amnesty and said we want a tough immigration bill. There's no way those people were going to vote yes if the Republicans were all voting no. They would be one-term congressmen and they'd lose their seat next time around. Of course the Speaker's not going to bring it to the floor.
I agree. It's a very touchy issue, and if you can't have a strong bipartisan majority in both, I agree to leave it alone. I'm told by my producer, Senator Rockefeller does not have a law degree. He only has a BA in Far East Studies from Harvard, which is exactly my point. In order to have effective oversight, you've got to let more people know than just the senator. If we have people with top secret clearances, if you're spying on millions of Americans, as I think we are, Mike, and I can't say I have a smoking gun on this, but to me, all the smoke is leading toward that gun. We need to have more oversight. We need to have more people know about it.
We need, but Mark, again, if exactly what Senator Feinstein asked, if there's an Al-Qaeda to Al-Qaeda domestic phone conversation,
get a warrant.
Whatever it is, I hope we're listening to that conversation.
I hope we are too, legally and through the constitutional procedures we have listening to that conversation. That's all I'm asking. I'm not saying don't spy on Al-Qaeda. I'm saying do so within the law. And I got one last question for you. We have a new war czar, a general, Michael Lute. Apparently is in charge of the war operations in Iraq and Afghanistan. Here's my question, I guess it's an obvious one. Is a war czar necessary? And if it was, why didn't we have one 5 years ago?
I think you're actually being easy with that question. You could have
it's a ridiculous idea, isn't it?
You could have phrased it. No, I don't know if it's a ridiculous idea. I think actually the more important part is why wasn't it done 5 years ago? If indeed they're having problems coordinating all the disparate issues and things like that, the USAID, the State Department, the security, the DOD, all these different things. If those things are having trouble being coordinated, they knew this a while ago. They could have had the war czar a couple years ago. My guess is, on a practical matter, Rumsfeld didn't like it, and so therefore it didn't go anyplace until Rumsfeld was replaced. And now we have a new Secretary of Defense who says, yeah, that's a good idea, let's go for it.
Here's what I understand. We have Joint Chiefs of Staff, we have military leaders, we have the Secretary of Defense, we have a president who's commander-in-chief. Aren't they in charge of the war? Or is the whole purpose of having General Lute there to have a scapegoat when 3 months from now we haven't magically won the war?
No, the ground commanders are there running the military operations. They are not involved in what USAID or other aid NGOs are doing. The USAID people are not involved in the war part effort. The economic people, the World Bank folks and stuff like that, they're not affiliated with that. You do need somebody to coordinate all that.
If you needed someone, it should have been done 5 years ago.
We have 3.
All right. That's it for the Inside Scoop. I hope you enjoyed the show. You can find more about the Inside Scoop at radioinsidescoop.com. I want to thank my guest, Mike Lane. This is Mark Levine signing off.